experiences you can have as a new virtual assistant or freelancer of any type is trying to deal with the client who hasn't paid you or owes you money for work that you've already completed. This is especially difficult to deal with when you are working for a client with the first time because you don't have that trust and that reliability between the two of you to feel confident that you're going to get paid. So it generates a lot of unnecessary and frustrating emotions when this happens. That being said, you should never take it to level 10 and flex that muscle of dealing with a client who hasn't paid you unless you've had an opportunity to speak to them about it first. So this is the purpose of this post and this presentation, to give you a little bit more information about what do you do, what should I try first, and how can I try to get that money from the client. There are a lot of great clients out there. They pay on time, there's no payment drama, they may maybe even never have issues related to payment, right? There's also people who are less than ethical. They will try to use you and take advantage of you and not pay for work. There's also a third group of people, and honest mistakes happen. So it could be a technical glitch, it could be something where they honestly forgot about it, perhaps they mailed you a check and it never came, etc. In the days of internet payment and processing programs like PayPal, it's much easier to keep track of what money you owe and when you need to pay it. That being said, mistakes do still happen. So you need to identify which of these categories your client falls into. If they have paid you on time in the past, then don't rush to level 10 to accuse them of not paying you on time or not paying you at all. But you also don't want to use the fact that you have a positive relationship with them to avoid the situation. You don't want the client to think that it's okay to do things like this to you if it's something other than an accident. First thing you should do in any situation is try to figure out the reason why payment never came. If you're working with the client as a brand new virtual assistant for them, you need to be aware that they may have processes and requirements for you to submit your invoices, and you need to follow those instructions. Even if they don't have a particular program in place, you need to be the one who speaks about your payment requirements. A lot of virtual assistants I know will demand that all the payment for the following month be made a month in advance so that they don't have to do any work without being worried about not getting paid. When you first start working with someone, you might decide to have payments every week or every 2 weeks until you build that relationship of trust. Glitches do happen. You could give them the wrong PayPal address. They could have not processed it because you're new to their system and they're paying other people. There's a variety of reasons why a legitimate payment mistake can happen. But before you accuse somebody, you want to give them a chance to fix things. You want to give them a chance to try to find out what happened, and then you also want to give them a chance to fix things between the two of you. It can take a good business relationship, just one instance of the client accusing the other client of mishandling funds or doing something inappropriate. That trust is immediately shattered, and it's a very serious issue. There are situations where you need to escalate the issue and make it clear to your client that they've broken the payment terms, but you don't want to do that unless you absolutely have to. So give them a chance to fix things before you accuse them. It can come across as very unprofessional and disrespectful to accuse someone if it was an honest mistake. If this is the third or fourth time that it's happened, then sure, you need to be a little bit more forceful with your response. But if it's the first time and you've been working together for 6 months or a year, give them a chance to look into it and to fix it without being nasty about it. If you don't get a reasonable explanation in response, flex your muscle. This is where your contract comes into play big time. You need to have a well-written contract between you and your client, because this is going to be all of the written terms of doing business together. It should also include a section about what happens if payment is not made. A lot of virtual assistant contracts, for example, will include information about the client having 3 to 5 days or something like that to fix an ongoing payment issue. So you may need to remind your client of the terms in your particular contract. Your client probably is working with multiple contracts at any given point in time, so don't expect that they have yours memorized. Remind them, hey, according to our business contract, you have 3 to 5 days to fix this issue, otherwise I have to stop work entirely. Some virtual assistants will stop work as soon as there's a payment issue and only resume work when the back pay has been fixed completely. So give them those terms, even if it's outlined in your contract already, remind them of what it is. If the client disappears and you get a response initially and they put you off for a week and then you never hear from them again, any situation where they have disappeared means that you may need to flex your muscle. You need to confront the reality that you might never be paid. Nobody wants to accept this reality, but unfortunately, sometimes it's just the way things go. It's very rare to lose out on the funds completely if you have good payment terms in your contract and if the client has signed that contract. It should be very clear about when invoices should be paid. So a lot of the legwork you can do to avoid situations like this happens long before you actually have a problem, right? It comes in your actual contract and the client should be very clear of that. If it comes to a situation where you haven't heard from the client at all and you think they're ignoring you, still could be an emergency situation, perhaps a family member passed away or something like that. None of these are reasons for them to avoid paying you for months and months at a time. However, right, most people who run a business have emergency plans, backup plans to step in and address these kinds of situations. So if you have to take it to the level of making it a public issue, you have a couple of options, and only do this if you've given the client a genuine chance to fix things. You followed up with them a couple of times and there's been no response, or they promise, hey, I'll pay you on Friday, and it's now 2 weeks later and you still haven't received the funds. Only after you've given the client a chance to address the issue should you take it to the next level. So if their business is Better Business Bureau affiliated, you can file a complaint with the Better Business Bureau. I have done this in the past in a situation where there was an overdue invoice for a long time. If there was an accounts payable person that you can contact, so if there's a specific individual who handles all the invoices, contact them directly as opposed to your client. A lot of small businesses, it's very easy to think that the person you're in contact with is the only one running the business. A lot of times, even in small businesses, there are separate people who are handling the invoices. So you want to reach out to that person specifically, ask what the problem is, and ask when they'll fix it. If they ignore you, though, be prepared to take it to that next level. There's also the option of, did someone refer you to this person? So if you have a mutual contact that connected you in this business relationship, you may want to ask that person, hey, do you know if anything's up with Mr. Thompson? I haven't heard from him in 3 weeks and the invoice has been unpaid. This is sort of a last resort, but it can be effective because if that third party that referred you still has a relationship with this individual, it's embarrassing to have that brought up, right? So your client may actually hear about this issue via an email, a phone call, in-person meeting, whatever it is, and realize that they need to fix the situation. So you do have options to flex your muscle. I don't recommend going to this level with it unless you are absolutely sure that the client has no reason for, you need to be clear that the client is not trying to do this to you on purpose. But if they've disappeared and you feel like you have no other option, this is the best thing that you can do. I recommend following these. Hopefully you never end up in the situation of having a client who doesn't pay you. But remember to keep those payment terms crystal clear in your contract. Writing a really solid virtual assistant contract and having an attorney review it can help prevent so many problems. Good luck!